This is Patrick Ocampo. I'm with my special guest, former classmate, now colleague, and one of my closest friends, Dr. Julie Chan.
Thank you.
Dude, we are out here in rainy Los Angeles, California. Hi.
Hello.
It's been super cool. We're actually doing this. We got like our swivel chairs and stuff. But main topic for today is essentially, our journey, with taking this board exam. A lot of people don't know, but we took it 3 times in total. And
3.
Yeah, that's kind of like a 6-month timeline.
Yeah, third time's the charm.
Third time's a charm. So we're going to cut straight to it. Today's is going to be mainly about her because she's a star. But, here we are now. What's the date? It's February. We're in the beginning of mid-February right
13th,
now? 2025. Yeah, days we out here. So we'll take it back to July of 2024, right? So exactly where were you at in that time prepping for the first July exam?
I think we were in our last rotation.
Yeah.
I was doing it at a children's hospital, and I don't even know. I did everything. I used Final Frontier, Shout out to Final Frontier for helping us out, but I don't know. It was tough because I feel like coming back home from a clinical rotation and then studying after was hard.
Heck yeah.
And I felt like I just wanted school to be over. Graduation didn't even happen yet. Graduation was in the middle of our rotation.
That's true. Yeah.
And I feel like everything was just overwhelming and I was just scared. I'm like, okay, this is it. Like, once I'm done, my life will begin. And then after studying for that, it was fine. I did like a Zoom with a few of my friends, and that was really nice because it held me accountable with studying. And I didn't really do that many of the readings for Final Frontier. And I thought that was going to be enough.
Yeah.
I was confident because I felt that based off of what I was learning, I remembered from school as well, too. So I was like, okay, this isn't that bad, right? Like, it should be fine. But then leading up to it, I think, got to me. Like, I started spiraling in the first section.
Gotcha.
And I knew in my head, I'm like, this is it. Like, I'm not going to make it.
I feel that.
That's what it was.
We both use Final Frontier as
Yes.
the only resource to prepare for the exam, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, but like during school time too, we all bought score builders. And then
Right.
I had a score builders book and I opened it and I'm like, this is overwhelming. Like, there's too many content. Like, I don't know where to begin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
After that, the first one, took it and I'm like, you know what? Whatever happens, happens. But I still knew in my mind that I didn't pass. I think that was like the hardest part because I knew going in there and I'm like, you know what? Whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
But then coming out of it, I'm like, I bombed it. And I told people, I'm like, yeah, I bombed it. I'm pretty sure I didn't pass. And everyone's like, no, it's fine. Like, I'm sure you passed. And I'm like, I don't think you understand. Like, when I usually take tests and I don't do well, I know I don't do well.
And
then after, if everyone's like, no, it's fine, like, you passed. I'm like, don't.
Julie.
Yeah. And I'm like, don't tell me how to feel because I know how I felt and I'm pretty sure I butchered it.
I got you, yeah.
And then after that, I got my results and then it went downhill from there. But then I kind of expected it already, so that's why going into the second one, I'm like, you know what? Didn't pass the first time, it's fine.
Yeah.
I'll take it the second time. I'm going to make it.
Okay. Love it. Yeah, okay. No, I appreciate you sharing that. No, I similar. Yeah, because, dude, I think being in that last rotation and then studying, but then you're already kind of just like super tired, you just want to be done with school. Like you said, graduation didn't even happen. So it was a lot to balance for sure. I mean, it's not an excuse, like, at the end of the day, but, dude, it's tough. Like, it was a lot to juggle for sure.
Yeah, I think it was just hard too because I felt like I lost my confidence in my last rotation as well.
Oh, dude, okay.
Like, it was challenging to where I felt like I wasn't good enough. And I felt like, leading up to my rotations, I'm like, okay, like, it's fine. Like, I can treat people.
Right.
And, like, I can do this. I can work with patients. But then it's like the content part of it. They're like, oh, what's the specificity of this, test? And I'm like, I have to know that from the top of my head. Yeah. And then after I started freaking out and I started spiraling, I'm like, oh my God, what happens if I don't know my stuff? And then I think that's what really messes with my head too.
I feel that. Yeah. Leading into the second one, right? So October, right? So how long did you take, like, did you give time for yourself, like, after that, after you got the results for July, or did you just go straight into it?
Yeah, so after my first one, I reached out to our professor, H. I messaged him, I'm like, you know what? When I got my results, I told him, I don't have good news. I know everyone else has good news, but I don't. And he's like, are you messing with me? And I'm like, no. I'm like, why would I mess with you about this? Like, this is not something that I would mess with you about. But I met with him every week, and he got me to process my feelings. And he told me, like, okay, take this time, go through all your emotions, so then when the test comes again, you're not going to spiral, which I felt like was very valid.
Yeah.
But I think in my own mind, I already knew that I failed the first time, so then going into the second one, I'm like, okay, like, I have to pass. Like, whatever happens, happens, you know? And then after, I don't really know if I did anything differently. Okay. If anything, I went to Japan because I still wanted to celebrate that we graduated school. Yeah. So then I took a trip there, and in August, and then the test was in October. So I gave myself maybe like a month and a half or 2 months to study, and that was when I was locking in. I didn't have a job. I was just, going to the library, studying through Final Frontier, and I tried looking at score builders and stuff too. But I think what I thought was my problem was test taking. So there was just the endurance part of it, or just knowing how to read the question. Yeah. So then I basically took 1 to 2 practice tests each week leading up to the exam.
Okay.
And then I would review the questions just to make sure that I knew the content, and then I was, studying based off of the rationales, and then I was also referring back to Final Frontier as well too.
Okay.
I went into that test and I'm like, you know what? I studied more. I feel like I know more of my stuff.
Yeah.
And I've been taking practice tests, and I feel like I'm pretty comfortable with the practice tests that I've been taking. Mm-hmm. So then I feel like I should be good. And then I went in there, and then I walked out, and I'm like, you know what? I think this is the one. Like, maybe I might have passed. Joke's on me.
Well, yes. Well, for the second one, you felt a little bit more prepared. Like you said, you took more practice exams, you reviewed the rationales, kind of a little bit more of content kind of thing. And so.
I mean, I did feel a little bit more confident, but I also still felt scared. Like, I was not confident in myself.
It's scary, dude.
I know.
It's super scary.
I know. I feel like it was... That's the thing about me, though. I feel like I know my stuff, but I also don't know my stuff. And I always start spiraling, as I'm reading the questions. And I'm like, oh my God, do I actually know this stuff? This question looks familiar. This content looks familiar, but I don't know it by heart. It's
real. Like, when you're taking the exam, it's kind of like a snowball effect, right? Like, you... don't know what this question is talking about, then your confidence goes down a little bit, and then it just snowballs, and it takes over. Just it's real. It's literally a battle. Like, it's a whole nother game when you're taking the exam. It's a mental game, honestly. Because I feel like, yes, you know your stuff. Yes, you can treat patients, but can you overcome this challenge and actually? The challenge is the question. Yeah. What are they asking? No, it's real. Oh, gosh. It's real. Yeah. But yeah. Okay. So you took the second one. You walked out. You're like, hey, felt a little better than the first time? Can you say that, or is more? I felt a lot better than this time. Actually, honestly, I read the questions and I'm like, oh yeah, I know this. Yeah. It's fine. I know this too. Got it. And then after I walked out of the test, I'm like, okay, I feel good. Yeah. But I guess I should have known you should never feel good about walking out of that test. Dude, that's real. Because the first time I'm crossing my fingers. I'm like, okay, let's just hope for the best. Yeah. The second time, I'm like, you know what? I feel better about it. And then after that, I ended up not passing. It's interesting because after the first one, we're juggling, right, clinical rotations and just graduating, and then second one, it's 100% all in, right? You're locked in content, you're locked in practice, taking the practice exam, so you feel like I'm a little bit more comfortable and ready for the first one, and then so you're kind of in the back of your head no, this was the one, for sure, I have to pass the second one. There's just no way, there's just no way. And then obviously, you get the results for the second one, and then that's when I started feeling at my lowest. I think the first one, people expected me to not be doing okay because I didn't pass the first time, but then I already mentally prepared myself for the first one of not passing.
going into the second one, I really thought that I passed because I felt more comfortable with the questions that I was reading. And when I walked out of there, and then when I found out my results, it was like I hit a wall, and I just didn't know how I was supposed to feel. And that's when I went through this emotional, spiral. I was talking to H about it, and he was like, honestly, I expected you to feel this way for the first time. So it's weird that you're feeling it the second time. And I was like, I can see that. And then I checked my score. I actually did worse in my second one than I did in my first one. And then that did not help my confidence whatsoever. And then I started spiraling. I was in a dark place. And then people were reaching out like, oh, hey, how are you doing? Hey, how's it going? And I'm like, just leave me alone. Like, I need that space to just dwell on my feelings and just find out who I am. Because I feel like I knew who I was, but I just went through a whole entire imposter syndrome.
Totally, yeah.
And I couldn't see myself as a PT anymore.
That's real. I mean, and honestly, we know, we talked, all the time. We kept each other accountable, but it's hard to it's hard for people to understand the emotion you just felt. Like you mentioned, I just went into a dark place. That's very broad, but getting it the first time, you're like, and I remember talking to you, you're like, oh, you're kind of just like, all right, yeah, I failed. I was like, okay. And the second time, it definitely it hit. But that, man, it's hard to really explain that because you're just you did everything you could. And yeah, that was that was the second one. It gives me the chills kind of just thinking about that second time. I feel like the sun goes away.
Yes.
It just gets super dark.
I feel like I would never want anyone to go through that because it just sucks. I felt like I wasn't going to be able to get out of it, and I didn't see myself doing PT anymore. And I was talking to people, I'm like, I don't know if I can be a PT because I don't see myself treating. I don't see myself making a patient feel better. I everything that I've learned, I don't know if I know how to apply it anymore. And then I was just like, you know what? I'm going to take it again. But I'm going to try everything at this point, anything. So I, gave myself time to wallow. And then, but it was always still in the back of my head. I'm like, I'm not good enough. I'm not going to be a physical therapist because I just don't see it anymore. After the first one, I'm like, okay, you know what? It's still possible. We just graduated. But then the second one, I'm like, it's almost going to be a year since we graduated. I don't even know the last time, I don't even remember anything about neuro. But then I should trust myself because I've studied all this time. So I should know my stuff, And it was bad. But then going into the third one, I did everything. I went through therapy ed, front and back, read the whole entire book, and reviewed some of those things too. And then I went back to Final Frontier because I'm like, you know what? They really taught me core things, and they taught me the baseline of a lot of things too that warped into the NPTE. So I'm gonna review that one in addition to what I learned in therapy ed, and I'm gonna put it together. But the content, when I was taking my practice test, I just had to go with my gut. I couldn't second guess. I had to trust myself because one of my friends actually told me, he was like, Julie, you're going to be fine this time. You literally studied for this test for 6 months.
That's real.
And that hit me. I'm like, you know what? That's kind of messed up, but also it's true. It's true because I studied it for 6 months. I should know my stuff.
You know this stuff,
But, and then I'm like, okay.
I kind of actually want to go back a little bit. Because that was super juicy. You had a lot of juicy, heavy hitters in that. Because I feel like people need to really break down exactly kind of all that stuff that happened after the second fail, and all that emotions you mentioned. You mentioned you didn't even feel like you're a PT anymore. You mind if you elaborate with? I feel like that's super powerful because I think a lot of people can relate because when you are in that dark place, it's kind of like, what am I even doing here? Right? I graduated, PT school. I failed the first one, okay, but the second one I failed. Dang, what do I even know? Right? If you can elaborate what that meant to you.
Yeah, well, I'm lucky to have a very good support system. I feel like the people that I talked to, they were very supportive. My family was very supportive too. Even talking to you, even though I was spiraling and I knew that like things happen and it just sucks that it happened to us. But it felt like I felt better knowing that you were also going through it too, because I wasn't alone.
Misery likes company.
I know.
Right? Yeah, it's real.
Because it was just like, even if we weren't, studying together, we were still texting each other, like how we were feeling, like, oh man, today was a rough day, or like, I scored this, but like I should have scored higher, but you know what? Whatever happens, like I'm going to try again. And I think that really helped too, because I'm like, you know what? It's okay if I don't get it right now, but I will get it right in the future. A lot of my friends were really supportive too. They gave me my space. Some people were kind of walking on eggshells because they didn't know how I was going to react. And a lot of my friends who are physical therapists, they also didn't know how to help me, because they're like how, like you're gonna be fine. Like, you got this.
There.
Like, okay, like I appreciate your help. And then there were some people who are like, you're gonna pass. You got this. Like, you're gonna pass this round. And I'm like, don't tell me that, because I already know that you can't guarantee that. You telling me that I'm gonna pass means nothing to me, because people have told me that I was gonna pass the first and second time. So honestly, people telling me that, I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. And they're like, yeah, study this.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. What really helped me was that I got a job.
Okay.
I got a retail job.
Where'd you get a job at?
Lululemon.
Okay. Hey, shout out discounts, dude.
I know. First of all,
Okay.
I was scared getting a job, because I was like, oh my gosh, like what happens if I invest too much into this job? What happens if I don't do enough and then I'm not studying?
Yeah.
And then I felt guilty. But I'm like, you know what? I've studied enough. I think I need a mental break. So I worked a seasonal job, and it was nice because when I was at work, I was surrounded by people who didn't know what I was going through as much, and I think that really helped, because no one was asking me like, oh, hey, how are you doing?
It's true.
What are you doing to,
no idea.
And then when I was at work, I didn't think about it.
Wow.
And I was distracted.
Okay.
Because, I was helping guests. I was always busy because it was the holiday season. And that really helped me, because then at work, like after I get off work, I'd be tired and I'd just go home and I'd like sleep, And then after the next day, I'm like, okay, I have work at this time. I'm going to study in the morning because I need to review some stuff.
Got you.
So then I followed through that schedule, and I felt better, where I wasn't really in a darker place, but I still, in the back of my mind, knew like, there's a possibility that I might not pass this round. And that's what still scared me too.
You mentioned like there's 3 things I take off that. The first one was social support. I think that is super underrated, and like, that's like honestly that's like a lot of our saving grace, right? Because there's some things you can't say, like, and there's what do you say to someone who's going through that? It's like, yeah, you just mentioned like, oh, you're gonna pass. Like, I kind of don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
But I know you mean well, and I really appreciate it. And then there's some people who are like, man, I don't even know what to say. I'm just gonna avoid you. So it's like, it's just like a weird place, and everyone kind of copes differently. But the second thing you mentioned is like your way of essentially coping was you had to work. So that dark place is real. Like you don't know what to do. Like you're literally been grinding for 6 months over the same content, and it's like, yeah, you can't just be doing the same thing, over and over again. But
I honestly started working out too.
Okay.
I started taking classes, because I'm the type of person who always donates to the gym and never actually goes. But this time I actually went to Pilates, and I was consistent with it. I would go twice a week, 3 times a week, and then I started doing berries, I would try those out. And that also distracted me too, because I was like, okay, I'm going to do a workout, and I'm going to go to a coffee shop to study.
That's dope.
I also, based off of the first time that I studied for it and the second time that I studied for it, I went to different places to study. I know a lot of people like going to the library or like the coffee shops or somewhere where it like mimics your testing center. I tried all those on the first time. And I'm like, okay, at this point, I don't think it's the setting that really matters. I think it's more about me and how I'm going to feel comfortable. So, I mean, it works. Like, if it works, it works. I actually went to Western to study for a couple times.
Oh, you're on campus?
Yeah.
Dang, okay.
I didn't want to show my face. to people because I was just like, I don't want anyone asking me questions. I don't want to tell you anything because I feel like I already told my story so many times. The first time that I didn't pass, and then the second time I didn't pass, and now I'm like, I don't want to tell you again after the third time. Like, I'm scared. No, honestly, it was just a mental game. You could do anything you want to study the material, memorize the material and content. You can understand the material all you want.
That's true.
It's overcoming that mindset of what's going to happen. And then I'm like, okay, taking the test, you have to be confident. But it's like, I can't second guess myself.
Totally.
But it's also like, do I see myself as a PT? So I started doing, I think 2 or 3 weeks leading up to the test, I did some corny things, in my opinion. They're corny to me, okay? Because I don't do this stuff. But like some people, it works. It works. I wrote out positive notes.
Heck yeah.
On like Post-its, and I was posting it all over my room.
Heck yeah. I will pass.
I like.
Hey, shout out to Final Frontier. That was work though.
David, you know, my chest probably has like a permanent indentation of my wrist.
It's
like,
real, yeah.
I did that. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna do that every single time David does it. I'm gonna do it as well. And I put, I will pass. I put my name and my credentials on a Post-it.
Love it.
So every time I opened my computer, I would see it. And I'm like, okay, that's gonna happen once I pass.
Love it.
And then I would, you know, sign my name into that just so I knew how it felt.
Nice.
And I'm like, you know what? I could see this. You know, I could see this happening. And then I started getting excited leading up to the test. I know. I was like, I started getting excited. I wore my jacket with my name embroidered. And I was looking in the mirror and I'm like, I got this. Like, I have to trust myself because I've studied so much for this. Like, this is it. This is it. But then it was always in the back of my head. What if it's not it?
Yeah. But then honestly, that's like, I'm already hearing it right now. Like, there was so much you changed and so much that was so different from the first time, the second time. Like, that's what it's all about, right? Like, I don't know the quote exactly, but it's like, if you continue to do the same thing over again, that's essentially insanity. By doing the same thing over and over again. So it must have clicked like, I have to do something different. You start working out. You got a job. Like, you manifest it with like positive notes. Like, I think, you know, I feel like that's super important, right? Like, that people need to hear that it's not about the content. We know the content, all right? Like, 3 years of PT school it's a doctor program. It's vigorous. It's there. It's engraved. It's literally here. It's like us. We're our biggest like obstacle. That's super powerful. It's literally, it's your mental, yo. Like, but it's fair though, because after the first and second time, like, you just feel like I'm just defeated. Like, it's hard to get back into like to climb that mountain, but you did it. Like, you know, like, and I know like mental health is like really, it's very important. It's an important topic. So like, just quickly talking about like your mental health, like how was that throughout, you know, that whole entire process from July of 2024 to like up to taking that third exam in October?
I think in the first time last year when after I didn't pass, I'm like, you know what, I just had tunnel vision. I'm like, it sucks. It sucks that I didn't pass, but let's move on. I'm gonna have to move on. But I tried processing my feelings, wrote out some positive things, wrote out what went wrong, what didn't go wrong. My main thought was it was because I was spiraling the first 2 sections. So it's like, okay, I had to go over that obstacle and what caused me to spiral. Was it because I didn't feel confident in myself, or did I feel that I didn't know my content, or was it just test taking and I just didn't know how to just have that positive mindset going into the test every single section. Second one, I was in a darker place and I didn't know how to get out of it. And that's when I was thinking about going to therapy, but then my insurance, and I'm like, okay, like, do I just keep talking about my feelings to people who are gonna listen to me or something like that? But then that's when I was talking to our professor about like how I didn't see myself as a PT anymore. And I told a couple of my friends that too, and they thought I was insane. They're like, I've never heard anyone say that before after not passing.
Wow. And
I couldn't really believe it, but I also didn't know what I was going to do if I wasn't going to be a physical therapist.
True.
Yeah, because I had to be real with myself. You know, like, how many times am I going to keep trying to pass this test? What happens if I'm just not meant to pass this test?
Wow.
And that's why I was like, I don't know. And everyone kept telling me that this test is hard for a reason, but it's also just a test. It doesn't determine how great of a PT that you're going to be. It doesn't determine the person that you are.
Yeah.
It's just a stupid test, a standardized test, that's trying to get you to like play mind games with you at this point. So then I was just like, you know what? You are right. Like, I know that I can be a great physical therapist, but it's just, I have to take this freaking test.
Yeah.
Like, I'm tired of it.
Yeah.
I'm tired of it. So then that's when I did all those things leading up to it. I actually went to Temple.
Okay.
It's like a statue in Long Beach. Our friend, Justine, told me about it.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Justine.
Justine.
But I went there and I'm like, you know what? I'm not really that religious, but then I'm going to try it out. Because what happens if I find peace? What happens if I, something else happens? So then this was maybe a month leading up to the test. And I went to the temple. And walking out of that temple and driving home, I felt like a little bit of weight lifted off my shoulders.
Wow.
I kind of felt not confident, but then it hit me. Like, I had a realization that I do know my stuff. I just have to go with my gut. And a lot of people have to tell me that. Like, just go with your gut. You know your things. Just freaking take the test.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. So then leading up to that, that's when I started doing all the Post-it notes, the positive words, wearing the jacket, just reminding myself that I can be a physical therapist.
Let's go. Okay, I got the chills.
like I think that's what I realized it, because like I had a job waiting for me and they were very supportive of holding that position for me as well too. And everyone was very supportive. There were some people who knew to keep their space. There were some people who knew, like, you know what? It sucks. It happens, but you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, I know I'm going to be fine, but I'm just scared. So leading up to that test, it was always in the back of my mind, what happens if I fail? What happens if I fail again? Like, am I going to do this again? So then that's why this time when I did therapy ed, I did Final Frontier, I was confident. I believed in myself. And then going into that test, I had a clear mind. And I walked in there thinking, if I don't pass this round, I don't know what I did wrong. Because I did everything that I could. I, had a job. I was working out.
Yeah.
I was eating okay. I did all these things, and I walked in there and I'm like, I don't even know if I would want to take the fourth test.
Yeah.
Because I did everything that I could.
Yeah.
And it was sad because this is in the beginning when I found out that I didn't pass the second time. My family wanted to go on a trip to Vietnam. And they were planning on going at the end of April. And do you know what else was at the end of April? The next NPTE. So
2025. This
yes,
year. Yeah.
Yes. So then I was thinking about it. I'm like, okay, if I need to take it the fourth time, am I going to make it to this trip? They were going to go to Japan first to break up the flight. So it was going to be Japan, then Vietnam. And I thought about it and like, okay, the next test is going to be April 29th, April 30th. If they're going during this time, I might just meet them in Vietnam. I'm going to skip Japan because what happens if I have to take it the fourth time?
There was always just like that what if.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, but
I had to mentally prepare myself. I'm like, but people were telling me not to self-sabotage.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's what really hit me too. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. I am preparing for the worst.
Yes.
I shouldn't prepare for the worst. This is my last option. There's no other chance.
Yes.
I have to pass this third time. And then I called my sister and I'm like, you know what? Buy that flight because I'm going to Japan. I'm going to Vietnam. I'm going on this family trip no matter what because I'm passing this round. And I just had to tell myself that. I just had to keep telling myself, I'm going to freaking pass. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of standardized testing. I'm tired of all these things. And then walking into the test, I'm like, okay.
Julie, see, that's what's crazy. It's people were telling you you're going to pass. People were telling you you're going to be okay. People were telling you that you're going to be a PT. But literally the secret sauce, the magic key was you had to tell yourself that you were gonna be this and you're gonna pass. And you know, once you're able to get over that hump, once you're able to like beat your mental and just be like, no, like, hold on, I'm gonna like it happened and manifest it. I think that's super powerful, right? Like that's crazy, but that's not easy. Like you had to do some lifestyle changes, like you mentioned. You went to the gym, you ate better, like you had to like literally get your mind away from PT stuff by working at Lulu. Like you had to make those choices, right? Like I mean, let me ask you this: like, if it wasn't for you not passing the first and second time, like, do you think you'd be able to have these lifestyle changes? Like, let's say if you passed after the first time, like, would that something you'd implement in your life now?
No. Honestly, I feel like if I were to pass the first time, I wouldn't even consider any of these things. I would just be like, okay, I'm just gonna be treating. Okay, yeah, I can treat you for this, you know? But then I think going in there, if I were to pass the first time, I think I would have had imposter syndrome. I would have felt like, oh shoot, like I barely passed or something, you know? I was always trying to aim for not barely passing, but I think I've just come to the realization that I'm just gonna do whatever it takes to pass. So it's okay, like I don't have to get an 800 out of 800 score, like I'm just gonna do whatever because testing sucks, you know? That doesn't determine who I am as a physical therapist. And I think now I'm glad that I went through this journey. It sucks that I had to pay for the test 3 freaking times, but I know, money in the bucket, you know? But it's just, I feel confident. Like I feel like based off of what I know, based off of what I learned at school, it has helped me become where I am.
You're the best version of yourself right now.
Yeah. And I think that it sucks that it took this long for me to realize this because I think going into PT school, I struggled with school, you know, I didn't pass one of the classes first semester and that was an obstacle. But then I think it really encouraged me that like I had the school support, like the professors that we had, they were very supportive too. And then people just kept telling me like, this doesn't determine who you are as a physical therapist. You know, it's just, you know, it's just part of the journey.
Totally.
And it got to the point where I'm like, I'm tired of this freaking journey. I'm tired of people, you know, throwing all these obstacles at me. I just want to start my life. Like, I just don't want to, like, that's great that I'm going through this journey, but I want it to end. Like, I just want to start my life. Like,
the great Kobe Bryant, you know, says it's not about the destination, the journey. The journey's a dream. But that's what's crazy. It's like, you're literally a better version of yourself because of these past 6 months. Yes, like money. I mean, I feel it. Like I'm out here scrapping for money at the end of the freeway, you know, with my cup. You know, I wasn't really, but like you feel like you don't have any income. Like all your friends are making money during their careers, but it's an investment in your future. But like what we've learned these past 6 months, like that's gonna take it. It just sets us up for the rest of our lives. Like if we can go through these 6 months, like we can go through anything, and I feel like that experience is priceless. And it's easy to talk about that now because we're on the other side of it, but we talk like through it, and dude, it was, you know, we had our days, you know, like rough. You would have your days where you call me and be like, hey, like we got this, and I'm like, yo, I'm not gonna lie, Julie, I feel like crap. And I feel like, and there are days I'm like, hey, let's go, Julie. You're like, I don't know. You know? I think the biggest message is you're not alone. You're not alone when you go through these things. And I think that's the scariest part about it is when you feel like you're alone, because you do feel like you're alone. You're like, man, everyone's accelerating and passing me, and I'm here like backwards. But there's people who are going through the same exact thing. And for everyone who wants to hear, like statistically speaking, for the 3rd time, right? When you prep for your 3rd, how many practice exams did you take? Like on average, how many practice questions did you look at? And kind of what was your study tactic? I know you mentioned like what you know, the off the court stuff, like working and stuff, but what was like studying like for that 3rd one? So
I got Therapy Ed the first time, read it front and back. And then I also purchased like the 3 tests that it comes with as well too. So I had 3 Therapy Ed tests, and I paid for TrueLearn, which gave us like a lot of questions, and I started taking questions each day, maybe varying between like 10 questions to 20 questions in the beginning. And I actually switched it to the ones that I was weak in. And I think that's really helped me too. But then after, as I started taking all these questions and I got some of them wrong, I was like, oh shoot, do I know my stuff? Do I not know my stuff? So I kind of took a break from taking the test questions. And I think that's what also helped me too, is realizing when you need to take a break. You know, I think all of us are always like, okay, I feel guilty, like I need to study 8 hours a day.
Right.
I need to study 10 hours a day because I don't know this material still. But then at the end of it, when I was just taking all those practice questions and I kept getting lower and lower scores, and I was just like, okay, I need to take a mental break from it.
Okay.
I'm going to pause.
Yeah.
This doesn't determine if I know my stuff or not, because I know that I'm just second guessing, or it's just like this is affecting my mental health, because now I feel like I don't know anything. But then after I took a break from the questions, I moved on to reviewing Final Frontier. Reviewing Final Frontier videos, the mega reviews, and all those. I would only watch the videos that I was weaker in. MSK I felt confident in, so I was like, okay, don't have to watch that. I'll watch Neuro, Cardio Pulm, non-systems. And then I took 2 of the Therapy Ed tests. I think I took within like a week or 2, I took 2 of those, and then I also paid for the PETs.
Okay.
For the Therapy Ed ones, I felt like it was more content-based, and I liked that because it really tested to see if I knew my content or not.
So you're reading the Therapy Ed book.
Yes.
So yeah.
And I actually paid for the questionnaires of Therapy Ed, which were questions from the actual test, I think.
Oh, wow.
So that's why I didn't take the 3rd test too, because I would rather take the PETs, because that one mimics more of like the NPTE. So I liked Therapy Ed's questionnaire because it made me rate how confident I was in answering the questions.
Therapy Ed was hard.
I know.
Therapy's
That's
hard.
what I struggled with, with the confidence. So it was like, oh, were you confident? Kind of confident, or like not confident at all? And there were some questions that I was just like, I'm somewhat confident, and they still marked it as wrong. And I'm like, what the frick? I was somewhat confident, but I still got that answer right.
Yeah.
So then after, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to click confident for all of them, okay? Because I have to be confident with all my answer choices. And that's another stepping stone, because it helped me solidify what I knew. And I'm like, I can't just be like, it could be this.
Yeah.
I just have to be confident or not.
Yeah.
If it's wrong, it's wrong.
Yeah.
So.
Did you take the True Learn practice exam too?
I did.
So 3, 4, then PET.
So I did five total.
5 total.
Yes.
Cool. In the span of like what, like 2 months, month and a half?
Month and a half.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe like a month and a half. I didn't take a practice test. Well, the last practice test that I took was the PET. I took the retired PET on the Saturday, and then the test was the following Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah, so I didn't want to take it on a Sunday or anything, because I wanted to at least give myself time to have Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday to review if I needed to.
Gotcha.
And then leading up to the test, I felt like I knew things. I think the past 2 times that I took the test...
Well, you need a couple things.
I know.
2 or 3 things.
Yeah, just a few. But like the first 2 times that I took the test, the weekend before the actual exam, I felt like I stopped absorbing material.
You just burnt it.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't know what I know anymore. I felt like everything just went down a hole, and I just couldn't recall anything. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know anything. But then the 3rd time that I was taking it, leading up to the test, after seeing, I passed one of my practice PETs, and I was like, okay, this is doable. Like, I'm seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
And then Sunday, review, more material that I felt like I was weaker in based off of my sections. And then Monday comes around, I'm like, okay, I have to start, weaning off of it. And when Tuesday came, it was the day before the test. And I was thinking that I cannot spend the whole day studying. So I studied until maybe 1.
So you studied half, little beginning of the day?
Yeah, it was more like review, like outcome measures,
Okay.
or like just little content that I neglected to look at, because I'm like, okay, this is more like memorization. Let me just review it the day before. So I studied until like 1 p.m. and then I made plans to go somewhere. I'm like, you know what?
Treat myself, mind
Yeah.
out, yeah.
So I went with one of our friends, Z, Okay,
See
so
that.
then we went to the museum, and then we went to go get dinner. And I think that really helped me too, because even though the test was the next day and I was kind of freaking out, I was in a better place. I felt like, you know what? This is fine. Like, whatever happens, happens. But I did everything that I could. So now it's up to the test.
That was the biggest thing.
Yeah. And so then after going in, I changed my testing location. I
Nice.
felt like that place was cursed or something the first 2 times. I'm like, I don't want to set foot in there anymore.
Yeah.
The prometric people, I don't know, man. I
Like
feel
homies
like
with them down.
Yeah.
Like, you again? Yeah.
they're gonna be like, hey, weren't you here like a few months ago?
Last year, yeah.
So I took it in a different location, and I walked in with an open mind. And I think that was the very first time that I can actually say, going into that test, my head was clear.
Wow.
My mind was clear. I wasn't freaking out. I wasn't like spiraling and thinking, what if this happens? What if I don't pass? I just thought in my head, going in, I did everything that I could. I did everything I could.
Yeah. And that wasn't by accident. Like that was because of you. Like you had that
Yeah.
mindset because of you. It wasn't just because like I'm gonna show up today and let's see how I feel. Like you put in the work. Like you had to literally be broken down to be built up. Like you took
Yeah.
accountability of what needed to be, worked on, and you did it. And I mean, shoot, like I just feel like you got to give yourself a lot of credit. I feel like that's something that I always tell you. You got to give yourself more credit because you work your butt off for everything you got. And
Yeah.
honestly, like this is just a testament of it. Just took a little bit of time. I mean, it was only 6 months, but look at you now.
It's only 6 months.
Yeah, well, look how much you've learned, how much you've learned about yourself. I think the
Yeah.
biggest thing, one thing I want to hit on is when you're studying and taking practice exams and you're weren't getting them right, you knew when to take a break. I think that's so I can relate to because you're just like, what the heck? Like I'm getting what is it, like a 60%?
Yes.
True learns. I'm like,
my God.
oh my God, I'm getting worse. But you're like, no, like I just need to take a break, take a step back, and you're like, oh, okay, So, but I feel like no one really teaches you that.
Yeah.
You have to kind of experience it, and you have to know yourself. So I think that's cool that you mentioned that.
Yeah, I feel like it's just, there's a lot of people who tell you how to study. They give you suggestions on what to do. Like, I appreciate that, but also I feel like at the end of the day, it's what works for me.
Yeah, everyone's different.
Yeah. So, I mean, it might not work for me, but it might not work for you. It might work for you,
Yeah.
Everything that you do. That's why I say, basically doing everything that we possibly can.
Yeah.
And see if it works, because you tried everything. I didn't have any regrets saying, oh, I wish I studied more. Or, I should have crammed more of these things because I feel like I still don't know it. At that point, I thought about it and, I can't cram everything in because what happens if it's not even going to be on the test?
True.
And I'm like, I can't just stress myself out in something that I can't control.
Yeah.
At this point, I know all the stuff that I've studied. I know in the back of my head, I just know all these things. I feel like I can actually point things out and do the best educated guess.
Yeah.
Because school taught us that,
Yeah.
Final Frontier taught us that, Therapy Ed taught us the material. So if anything, if I've read it so many times, I've been more familiar with it. I feel like I should be able to know what they want me to know.
Yeah.
But I just feel like it was annoying because I see all these people who are like, oh, I almost got 100%. Oh, I, missed it by 5. And I'm like, I just want to be comfortable.
Yeah.
Just be comfortable. I don't want to just hesitate and barely make it.
Yeah.
It's stressing me out.
I mean, I feel like that's kind of the reason why I wanted to sit down and do this, because everyone just has their own way. We study completely differently.
Yes.
Some of our closest friends study completely differently. It's just one of those things. You kind of have to figure it out on your own, and that's the kind of the purpose of this. Is it's okay. It's okay to not really know how to dive into this NPTE, because people need to hear is, everyone has their own way, and I really appreciate you, sharing your way, and a lot of it too. At the end of it is yourself. It's a mental battle. In general, right? Not just for
Yeah.
test taking. It's actually as a clinician. It can be as any profession.
Yeah.
You can't. Someone can't tell you they're going to be good at something unless you believe in yourself. So I think that's the biggest thing. Because if Julie can believe in herself, anything can happen. Last thing I have for you, I appreciate you sharing your story. It's like I said, like it's so cool and surreal. Like this is my first time seeing you since we passed.
Yep.
It's been a little over a week, and
Yeah.
I think it's slowly hitting me. But last thing that you can share, just anyone who is preparing to take this exam, or maybe just found out they didn't pass the first time or their second time or third time, or, like what advice would you give to that person who's listening to this?
I think you have to come to realization of what went wrong. I feel like there's a lot of times where people don't want to admit their mistakes, and it's just more like, maybe I could have done this better, or maybe I could have, spent more time doing this. But I think it is an obstacle, and it sucks, but you have to find yourself. Like, I feel like if you know how to draw the line and you know what you need, you can try everything. You can listen to all the people that you want, but like until you realize that yourself of how you can be better and what you can do to like make yourself see the light at the end of the tunnel, I think that's what it is. It's all a mental game, but then if it's a content thing, then you have to know that, like, okay, are you cramming? Are you procrastinating? Like, what is it, And I feel like just talking to people, finding the good support system, finding people that have also been through it too. You don't necessarily have to do everything that they do. It's just whatever works for you. Because no one knows you better than yourself. And I think that's what it is. Like, it's just all a mental game.
I love it.
I don't know.
No,
It's
I love
horrible
it.
advice.
That's amazing advice. And please share with us, what's the next step for Julie Chen, PT, DPT?
I'm going to start working.